Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic, and welcome to this deep woo-woo episode of Manifest Destiny. With me, of course, is Meg Moonbeam. You can find her at MAISON and also on YouTube at MAISON. Meg, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm having a little bit of detox symptoms of myself, so maybe we can get into that. Uh,
Mhm.
where am I getting an echo from?
Is there an echo?
Yeah. Do you have a YouTube channel open? No? Oh,
Don't
no,
think
there you
so.
go. It's gone. Okay, there you go. We're
Okay.
back. Sorry about that, folks. So, Meg, how have you been doing? I know you've been absolutely busy doing one-on-one consultations, and on top of that, you're absolutely busy doing amazing and wonderful new content here on Beyond Mystic with the Psychic Spies with
Yeah.
Sophie. The last episode you produced last night with Elvis,
Mhm.
Unredacted, was absolutely amazing. So, how are you
Yeah.
doing?
Good. I've been really busy, but been having so much fun being busy and doing magical things and sharing magical wisdom and meeting people in the consultations in the community. Everybody's just so amazing and wonderful. So I'm on a high right now. This is still new to me being a
Yeah.
part of this community, and I'm just really grateful and feeling really good. So yeah, lots of good energy.
Awesome. Well, I have to admit, I was watching this Elvis show yesterday, and I didn't miss a beat. You guys were absolutely amazing. And who knew that we were going to be talking, of course, the Secret Service and then murder. That's not where I thought this show was going to go, but it was absolutely fabulous. Pauline in the chat says, "Oh my God, Psychic Spies is an awesome show." Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, do you want to recap a little bit both the shows? The Bill Gates Unredacted was a different
Mhm.
frequency, of course, than this Elvis Presley one. Share with the audience members your experience going through this new process here of being a psychic spy with Sophie and
Yeah.
unredacting all of these amazing people in our realm.
Yeah. So something I've been learning so far, actually, ever since last summer when I did a really big deep dive on Justin Castro and the astrology of Canada, is that it's a lot of energy to look into, like whether you're doing a psychic investigation, psychic work, or even just looking at the astrology of these people that are into the dark arts. It's a lot of energy and you feel it. So when we
Yeah.
did the first episode on Bill Gates, Sophie and I were really feeling the heaviness of it. Lots of, even I felt we were being protected from some information. And, that's one thing that I want to share with everyone is we don't have to know everything
Right.
about these dark arts people because it is a really dark energy. It's not, I don't really think we need to know every single detail. It might even be too much for us, but it's good to get the gist of the overall energy of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And with Bill Gates, we looked into his life, just so many sketchy things he's a part of. I know a lot of our soul family in the audience know a lot of the things he's a part of, all the different projects and businesses that he's invested in that are just so nefarious and in alignment with the transhuman timeline that we're not going down that timeline. And I was really excited to find out within the past week that his next birthday is going to be on a full moon eclipse
Oh, wow.
on October 28th. So he's going to have an eclipse solar return, which anyone who's born May 5th, April 20th, October 14th, or October 28th of 2023, you're going to be having an eclipse solar return. And
Wow.
it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It just means a very intense upcoming year. But for Bill Gates, we get into it in the Psychic Spies episode. It's a horrible chart that he has for that solar return with the eclipse energy on top of it. I think this is probably can't say on YouTube, but yeah, some really intense things going down with him.
Well, we're seeing now, anyways, with the exposure of the truth of where all this was coming from. And of course, you got into, we can't speak about it much here, guys, but if you want to have a better understanding here of the architect, and I'll just say the plan, something demic, you guys know what I'm talking about. Go check out
Mhm.
this episode. I was fascinated by a lot of this too. And it's interesting because now that the news is catching up basically to the work that you and Sophie are doing here, at some point we're going to have some justice. And so I'm
Yes.
wondering if the white hats are also using these astrological alignments to serve justice in those big eclipse moments. We've
Mhm.
seen that time and time again. So it would just make sense that this year, specifically if it's his birthday also, that it could be timed around that. Just like the death of, what was it, the Prince the other day, or last year? Who was it that was also on an eclipse? So all these people seem to be going on eclipses. It's very fascinating to see.
A lot
So,
of people die around eclipses.
yeah. And whether or not they die at the eclipse or the announcement of their previous death is announced on the eclipse, that could be debated. There's a lot of confusion there for sure. Hey, Sherry West says, hi, Jean-Claude from North Carolina, I guess. Very exciting. Well, thank you for being here. And thank you, everyone, for being here in the live chat. Let us know where you're watching from. I'd be curious to know how much of a reach around the planet we're having in tonight's episode. And guys, tonight's episode is very important. I'm going to be sharing some personal experiences. So is Meg here. We wanted to talk to you about, of course, the detox and the purification that comes here with the Virgo full moon. We just went through the meditation process here on BeyondMystic.Academy with Janine and Elena. Fabulous meditation. If you guys haven't partaken in it, you can do so now on replay. Absolutely as powerful on replay as it is in the live. Do go check it out. And if you've seen it already and you participated the other day, please let us know in the live comments how it affected you. And of course, you can probably hear from my voice, I'm still detoxing myself here. So there was a lot of movement with those singing bowls. So let's set up the conversation for tonight, Meg, about the detox. Now, what was interesting in the show as I did the preamble with Julie, Elena, and Janine, was that we weren't just detoxing some of the physical toxins in your body. We're also being called right now to detox from perhaps egregors, tulpas, and maybe also succubus and other such limiting beliefs that create in physicality here some recurring thought patterns that are not necessarily conducive to you and to your evolution. And so when we're letting go of toxins, we need to talk about those etheric levels as well. Set that up for the audience here. Just talk about briefly the astrology of why this full moon in Virgo was important and how we can use that energy also to go through our own personal detox and purification methods.
Right. Yeah. So this full moon in Virgo that we just had on Wednesday, I believe, or Tuesday, but we're still in the energy of it now, is extremely important. I cannot emphasize enough how important this full moon and there's a few reasons for that. Number one is around this time of year, we always have the last full moon of the astrological year cycle that we're in. So we're going to be having the astrological new year on the spring equinox, March 21st. And there's going to be a new moon the day before that. So we're in the last full moon energy of a whole astrological year. We know that a lot of us know the Gregorian calendar is not the actual natural calendar, and that was created to throw us off natural time. The actual natural calendar new year is the spring equinox. So this is the greatest time of cleansing and purging of the year during Pisces season, this last full moon, which is always a full moon in Virgo. And it's not just us entering any good old, new astrological new year. We've also got on March 7th, which was the exact day of this full moon in Virgo, Saturn changed signs. Saturn moved into the sign of Pisces out of Aquarius, where he'd been for the past 3 years, where he actually started being in Saturn in Aquarius. I think it was 1 or 2 days before the whole pandemic. I don't know what the right word I should be using on here is. Saturn has been in his strength at one of his 2 home signs in Aquarius for the past 3 years. And Saturn rules the governments, our power structures. That's why it's been so intense. And people like the Bill Gates and people like the dark arts have been able to be in a power position. Saturn is now in Pisces since March 7th and will be there until February 2026. And these people are no longer in power. Anyone saying that they are, it's an illusion. They're not. I loved what Jay Weidner was saying. I watched the last half of the Nostradamus and Vortex of Time show that you guys did today, which you guys who haven't seen that, definitely check that out because that was an amazing show that you guys did today. And specifically, I loved when Jay was talking about these people who have this plan of the transhuman timeline, of locking us into the old earth, not going into the Aquarian age. It's not going to work. The whole frame structure of it doesn't even make sense logistically. Like, it's not going to work. And there's way too many of us that are awakened here as light workers and starseeds on mission. Like, the whole thing, logistically, practically, that's Virgo, right? Just isn't going to work when you look at it that way. So yeah, this Virgo full moon is really important for all those reasons. But another thing I wanted to bring up, JC, that I was really feeling this before coming on today, which I had never thought about before, is that Saturn is in Pisces right now. We've also got Neptune in Pisces, which has been there for the past few years and is going to be there until 2026. And Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. Okay. So the Pisces energy is extremely, like, on extreme levels. So this isn't a typical Saturn in Pisces like we had the last time Saturn was in Pisces in the early 90s. I'm seeing some astrologers and mystics saying it's going to be like the early 90s, a similar vibe to that with grunge and like specific things around this. No, this is going to be the Pisces energy on overdrive. And there's a couple other predictions I have around that. But it's going to be so strong. It's going to feel very dreamy. All of the themes, the things that Pisces rules in astrology, is going to be amplified times a million. And the opposite sign of Pisces is Virgo. Okay. So whenever we've got one of the outer planets in a certain sign, the opposite sign to whatever sign it's in is kind of in a weakened state, unless there's another planet in that same sign. So the opposite sign of Pisces, which we have Neptune in, we have Saturn in, and at the moment we also have the sun in, is Virgo. So I've been kind of channeling that all the things Virgo rules, which you guys did an amazing full moon singing bowl meditation, which I think is not just good to watch for this week. That should actually be something that, not telling you guys what to do, but I'm going to be suggesting people to do this at any time over the next year, this specific meditation, because the Virgo energy is something we need to be actually doing work on manifesting. It's not something that's just naturally in the air, like the amount of Pisces energy. The Virgo realism and having to take care of our physical health and physical maintenance and being in routines is going to be a very big challenge, because there's so much of the opposite sign of Pisces at play. Does that make sense? Did I explain that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that also goes for what I was channeling earlier with Pluto going into Aquarius, and we've had Saturn in Aquarius for the past 3 years. The opposite sign of Aquarius is Leo. Okay, so when Pluto goes into Aquarius March 23rd, and we've already had Saturn in Aquarius that brought the lockdowns, that brought all this crazy stuff, the Leo energy is weakened. And in personal consultations, everyone who is a Leo sun, moon, rising, or has a Leo stellium or north node, if you guys listening, any of my lovely friends and soul family clients out there, I've been telling you guys that you guys actually have, in my opinion, the most important role, Leo people, of keeping us in the heart, keeping us in the love, keeping us in the playfulness, because Aquarius is the opposite of that. And that, with the Pisces energy, is going to be on overdrive of technicalities and us seeing transhumanism and all this digital stuff. We have to be also working on not just the Virgo energy of taking care of our physical maintenance and routines, which we're going to talk about that, but also the Leo energy of being in the heart, enjoying life, playfulness, not taking things too seriously, and celebrating life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important. Caroline says, my reading with Meg was amazing. She's insightful and helped me so much. Well, thank you, Caroline, for that beautiful testimony. I appreciate that. Meg, speaking of the detox also, how does knowing some of these important astrological transits in this particular 1 year forecast that you do help people target specific dates where they should be perhaps proactive to do that detoxing and purification work? How does that help?
Definitely. Well, throughout the course of a year, we're all going to have certain points where maybe our sixth house is really highlighted, which is the house of Virgo, our physical health, or we're maybe going to have certain things going on with Mars, which is also very much about physical health. So when I look at someone's personal transits for the year, pretty much every time I try to keep in mind health, if they've got any, health issues, routine issues, and going over that for sure. everything in life is ruled by something in astrology. So
Wow, very good. Okay, and somebody was saying, I love the meditation, JC, doing it daily to help me detox. So thank you so much. Appreciate that. And folks, don't forget also that Elena is now doing one free meditation a week here on BeyondMystic on the channel. It's called the Beyond Harmony. These are at Friday at noon every week. And basically, she focuses on releasing the bad energies of the week, whether that's your job, your emotional stress, whatever it is, and focusing on setting intentions for the weekend so that you can rebuild your emotional, energetic, and spiritual bodies here to fight the next fight, so to speak, the next week. So really, really powerful meditations there, absolutely free for you guys. So check it out. And of course, while you're there, also check out the Beyond Astro. This is the new weekly series with the beautiful Meg here. That's every Wednesday at noon. Speaking of the next upcoming shows, you also have another Astro Decode coming up on MAISON Jupiter. What's that one going to be about, Meg?
That one's going to be on the upcoming eclipse season. So the April-May eclipse season. And I believe we're going to be doing that on Wednesday, March 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern. So that's something that is going to affect the whole collective, this very, I'm going to say, intense and potent first eclipse season of the year. So that's going to be a really good watch.
Very good. And Murdoch says, I'm looking forward to my reading with Meg tomorrow. Okay, really cool. Thank you, Murdoch. I appreciate that. And of course, let us know if you've had consultations with Meg, how those were for you. It's always nice to have that validation on the screen for Meg, because I know she works really hard, and sometimes she doesn't always get the feedback, or sometimes it takes a week or two for people to really integrate the reading and then come back to her. And of course, it's always valuable when we're doing this type of work to get the live feedback. So anybody in the comment section there, if you have any comments on that, please do share if you feel, of course, it's appropriate to do so. Okay, for tonight's episode, I wanted to so I just went on a staff retreat last week. We're in a different country. And as soon as the door to the plane opened up, I was hit with sights, smells, sounds that were reminiscent of another time in my life where I was traveling to sub-Saharan Africa. So 20 years ago, I used to do immigration consulting. I was hired by the province to go and recruit internationally trained workers to come and fill some of the labor shortages here in Ontario. So this was strategically looking for people to fill the gaps here in the province. And I got to travel a lot around the world. I learned a lot, but I wasn't prepared to deal with, as I said at the beginning of the show, some of the tulpas and egregors that are common to specific hotspots around the world. I had no idea about them. And I found myself struggling. So let me set this up a little bit for context. And I know that you also have some experiences to share here, Meg, for the show. And I think for the audience members, this will be quite fascinating to show how we go through an evolution of understanding that we're more than just this physicality. We're more than just the viruses and the colds that we have. There's a lot of other things affecting us in our energetic and etheric fields. So in this particular year, let me see if I can bring up a picture just for a visual. I'm not sure this is the right location, but similar to what you see on the screen here. So I was I was presenting Canada to a bunch of would-be specialized workers who would immigrate to Canada. And at this point, I think my story starts in Gabon, or it could have been Burkina Faso, one of the two, but I don't want to single it out, but in that neck of the woods. And we were sitting at a panel, and we had somebody representing the federal government kind of prepping the stage for us and telling the audience members how each of the provinces would basically sell their wares as to why one province was better than the other in terms of integrating economically, having security and social structures in place and all that stuff, right? And at one point, this lady came up from the crowd, and she asked the federal government worker, but why are you here? And the guy was all confused. He says, well, I just kind of explained it to you. We're here to recruit you guys and show you how Canada is so nice, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, but why are you here? And the guy was so confused by the question. And then she finally said, she says, look around the room here. She said, 95% of the people in the room are HIV positive. And we
Wow.
cannot go through the immigration process because we would be screened for medical purposes. And oh my God, all the hairs on my body jumped up. And I was looking at the guy too, like, yeah, why are we here? Like, what is this thing the federal government was trying to do? Didn't they know? Didn't they do their research? Like, come on. They wasted all the time of these participants, including us, the Canadian delegates that had traveled to find some candidates. But it didn't strike me at that point how absolutely powerful that statement was. But that can transform itself into a virus, or that can transform itself into an egregor, a living thought, could infect the people at the panel level. And it
Mhm.
did infect me, but I didn't notice until maybe 3 or 4 months later. So first of all, before I go too far on that storyboard, just hearing that way, how would that have hit you, Meg? Of course, with the evolution, the presence that you have today, all the spiritual work that you've done today, how
Mhm.
would that strike you, hearing that in a room and having to face all of these people, looking at them, knowing that 95% of them would not be there in the next 4 or 5 years?
That would have been really overwhelming and I think emotional for me, for
No,
sure.
for
And I
sure.
think my empathness would have gone on overdrive. Like, how can I help? How can I help? How can I help?
Right.
Did you feel that? Like,
I
or was
felt
it more
guilty.
like, right?
So I felt guilty from being having a full stomach and complaining about my life in Canada, right? You realize, holy shit, like that's what these people think in the morning. And I remember one of uh, the embassy workers that was kind of guiding us around. And he says, JC, you don't really, you guys don't understand yet. He says, these people wake up and their first thought in the morning is, am I going to eat? And their last thought at night when they go to bed is, am I going to eat tomorrow? Right? She says that whole mindset really shapes the way you live your life. And
Yeah.
it's unfathomable for people, most of the people probably watching the show, myself including at the time. And that's the beauty of traveling. You get to learn and experience the world and see yourself in a very different way
Exactly.
and coming to your priorities and all that. So it did affect me at that level. And I remember for the first 6 months coming back to Canada, having guilt about my situation in life. Now, I wasn't rich by any means, but compared to them, I had a lot of luxuries. I had a car, I had a house, I went out to the restaurant, I went out to the movies. And for a number of months, like I said, I felt guilty about that. But that wasn't the worst of it. And that took a while to realize, well, okay, that's not my plight, and I can't take on the responsibility of everybody else's soul contracts. It took me a while to kind of figure that out, but there was something else bugging me. I had this thought in my mind that I was going to die of AIDS. And I didn't know where it was coming from. And every day I was working, and I was working hard in those days too. I was in politics, and these are long 16-hour, 18-hour days, with a lot of stress. And I kept having this thought, oh, you're going to die of AIDS. You're going to die of AIDS. And it kind of like, it stressed me out. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about it. And I couldn't sleep. And it was just horrible. And it took me a couple of months to realize, and I don't remember the exact mechanism of how I realized it, but it was similar to me stepping out of my body and looking at myself and seeing somebody talking into my ear. So I'm not sure who said what, or if the lights flickered, or what jumped me out of my body. I don't remember, but I remember instinctively seeing that scene. Oh, I'm looking at Jean-Claude, and there's this thing talking in his ear. And that's when I realized, fuck, these are not my thoughts. This is the thought that perhaps was implanted by the young lady, or the global consciousness, the egregor of this specific community, holding these thoughts together. Like, imagine 1,000 people in a room, all knowing they're about to die in 4 or 5 years from now based on their medical condition, and holding that energy in themselves, and how that creates a tulpa or an egregor. So
Mhm.
before we go further here, let's explain what those are. Let me bring that up on the screen for the audience members here. If you want to just energetically read this out loud, Meg, for the audience members.
Mhm. So, an egregor is an occult concept representing a non-physical entity that arises from the collective thoughts of a distinct group of people. Historically, the concept referred to angelic beings or watchers and the specific rituals and practices associated with them, namely within Enochian traditions.
Right. So, putting aside the Enochian traditions for now, this idea that people thinking the same thing could create in an egregor or another entity using that energy. And when I realized that these were not my thoughts, I found myself in the first process of one realizing what was happening, but then having to argue with it. And the more I argued with it, the more it screamed at me, "You're gonna die of AIDS." And okay, so I have just been there in a room with 1,000 people dying of AIDS. I had just read this book, Dimanche à Kigali. I don't know if you've read the book, but it's again a story of was it Somalia? I think it was Somalia. I forget, but there's a General Allaire. Where was he stationed? Do you remember him, the Canadian general?
Not sure.
At any rate, it's inconsequential. But at the time, there was a big egregor about this particular plight. And it felt to me, I started realizing that it wanted to expand outside of its original territory to infect more people with that thought. Because as it infected other people with that thought, there was an energy exchange where the fear frequency would drop and something would feed off of that frequency, right? So that's the process here that most of us as humans go through from time to time when we visit different places, when we meet new people, when you go into a club or a bar where people are drunk. All of these things are there waiting in line to have their experience, to either enter other bodies and also to infect other minds, to increase this egregor, as it's called. So that having been said, to set the audience members, it took me about 6 months eventually to get out of it. And when I was arguing with it, just so you know, after I had realized that it wasn't me, something was talking to me, the more I argued, the more it was screaming loud. So that was not working either. So I had to finally love it and to say, thank you for sharing your information. And please now go to your perfect place. Right. So I sent that energy back. And then suddenly it started kind of like, oh, well, you're no fun. Literally, that's kind of like the message I got. Right. And so Barb says, wow, fascinating subject. Okay. It's important in the context of what we're talking about here for the detox, because again, not just the physical toxins in your body. The concept that I'm explaining now happens at a bigger level and at a very micro level, targeted to each individual's in various aspects of your lives, and you might not be aware of them. So, Meg, okay, before I share my next story of last week, maybe share one of yours and how this ties into some of your experience here dealing with not just limiting thoughts and beliefs that maybe you've programmed into yourself or that the matrix has programmed into yourself through your childhood, your education, your religion, and all that, but also perhaps other entities trying to infect that mindset in order to produce fear and then to feed off of you. Go ahead.
Right. So first of all, I want to say, because I'm seeing some people in the comments like Yada14 and some other people saying, how do we stop these from entering? And I'd like to hear what you think, JC. But for me, I feel like when our field becomes open and kind of vulnerable through emotional connection or some sort of cord of emotional connection with somebody else or a group of people, that's where our field opens up, right? So when you were in Africa and you're meeting these, I'm sure, very lovely people, you're speaking, you're having a good time. And that moment when you heard that specific information of what did they say? 95% of the people are going to die of AIDS within the next 5 years. That creates, because you are an empath, like, whoa, this energetic heart chord of, oh my gosh, this is so intense. Oh my God, I'm feeling sorry and love and all these things. So as empaths, this is why we can get psychically attacked a lot easier, because we're so empathic.
Yeah.
And this is why this is this Virgo energy of we need to be, and especially you guys, I cannot emphasize this enough. And there's a couple other things I want to mention after we talk about this, but how nitpicky we have to be these next coming years around who we're around, what situations we put ourselves in. Because most of us are empaths, probably, if you're listening to this right now. and we are open and we have open hearts. And to me, and let me know what you think, JC, but I think what allows these things to maybe latch on is when there's that emotional connection. There's a cord that's been created that lets them in. So I'll give an example. I think this is maybe a little bit more of a tupla experience that I had, which is, an object or being created from one person's spiritual or mental powers that maybe wanted to become an egregor. Okay. So when I went to music college in Toronto, I was like 18, 19 years old. I was living in an apartment with two friends that were also artists. And at the time, my energy field was not at its strongest because I had a lot of issues as a teenager with marijuana and even some drug use and alcohol and stuff like that. So my energy field wasn't really strong, and I wasn't really attracting high vibe people around me. So I was living with two lovely girls who are still my friends, but we were not in a strong energetic state. And one of my friends that I was living with, she had, so I didn't know this. Okay, wait, I won't say that part. So I had just done a gig in Toronto with my friend Erin, and we come back to my apartment where I'm living with two other girls. And Erin and I are both into, ghosts and spirituality and all this stuff. And we decide to do a Ouija board. We decide to make
don't do that.
So we make a Ouija board out of like a pizza box, the backside of a pizza box. And then one of my other roommates woke up, and she's also into that stuff. And we all start doing a Ouija board. And this Ouija board, we have like a shot glass or something we're using. It's moving right away. And it's saying really not nice things right away. And it's calling us like the C word, the woman swear word, the C word, and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And not only was it saying things on the Ouija board, but we were hearing, not on the outside, but like in our thoughts, the things that it was saying. Right. So then we started getting really freaked out because it wasn't just things it was spelling out on the Ouija board, like you're going to die and you're this and that, C word. We were hearing it. Right. So then it got really, really freaky. We all got away from the board, went into my bedroom. And that was the first time, I think probably not the first time, but maybe my higher self really came through, because all of a sudden I went, okay, we're getting salt out. We're covering the whole living room, all of us in salt. I started doing all these witchy things that I had never heard about before at that point. So I think I was like channeling my higher self or something. But long story, fast forward to the next day, the three of us wake up, and there's a dude sitting on our living room couch that was a guy that our other third roommate had brought over that night. We did not know there was a guy in the apartment that night, and he was a Satanist.
Oh, wow.
And he was covered in all these tattoos and stuff. And we looked at him and we're just like, okay, whatever that was last night that was trying to connect with us came from him.
Wow.
So that was, I think, one of the first experiences I can remember of like a tupla that maybe wanted to become an egregor that came from somebody else.
Wow. Okay. So people were asking, how do these attack you? So that's another good example. For me, it was a thought. It was also the documentary Dimanche à Kigali. Let me see if I can put this up. And thank you. Somebody who just reminded me in the chat. Where did you go? Start comments. Mathieu, Kigali in Rwanda. Yes. Romeo Dallaire, I believe, was the Canadian. I'm not sure if it was general at the time, but anyways, he has a big story on that too. But this is also about AIDS. And so this was very much in the field. And I was talking to Julie about this the other day too. And she says, JC, now that we're looking at, I'm going to be very careful for YouTube, the current situation and all the fallacies that are attached to the narrative, we kind of have to go back and look at other pandemics and say, were they exactly as they were being foretold in the public news? Or were we also mind fucked back then? And that's a very good point, and we cannot discount that. And in reality, we probably have to say most likely that was also a big mind fuck. So look, having said that, I won't go any further to that here on YouTube. Gypsy Woman says wow, and Caroline says spooky, and Barb says Holy smokes. Yes. And goosebumps from Kiwi. Okay. Everybody's reacting. I get it. Okay. So before we get into the how and the protection and all that, because a few people were asking, let me see if I can bring this up. JC, were you using psychic protection at that time in your life? Oh, no, absolutely no. I was in the Matrix deep in this whole woo stuff. To me was absolutely crazy, batshit crazy. I remember going to Sedona. I was doing voiceovers for a training seminar. And over the weekend, we went into, I was in Arizona. Oh, what was it called? No, hold on.
Scottsdale,
Tempe. Yeah, I was in Scottsdale doing voiceovers with Melandro Communications, I think was the firm at the time. Anyways, in the weekend, I went up to Sedona and I kept seeing these signs for vortex retreat and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, these people are fucking nuts in my mind, right? Now, of course, I went back to Sedona maybe 10 or 15 years later, realizing, oh, well, I was the one who was crazy and all those guys were on the right side of the track. At any rate, it just goes to show you, we all go through this evolution. And somebody was asking, oh my God, how young were you in that picture? How young was I in that picture? That was about 20 years ago. So yeah, it's a little bit younger than I am now, for sure. What was that picture? This one? And oh yeah, this one here too. I'm a little bit skinnier there, I think. At any rate. Okay, so going back to, before we get into how to protect yourself and how to get out of it if you're already caught by one of these tulpas or egregores. The story last week was similar in the sense that I went to this Caribbean island for the staff retreat. And again, as they opened the door, I remember them opening the door in one of these countries in Africa and being hit with, like I said, the sights, the sounds, the smells, basically of death, by the way. And so in this particular Caribbean country, same thing happened to me. And I look at Sarah, I'm like, whoa, okay. First of all, I haven't traveled in a long time because of COVID, and this particular country has no restrictions. So I was wondering if I was just not being used to having these sights, smells, and sounds for a long time. And then it hit me, no. There's something else here. There's this huge egregore on top of the whole island. And for that, it's about slavery. It's about rape and pillaging, right? And so I immediately recognized it as such and kind of had a good feel for the frequency. And as soon as we started going to restaurants and, walking around, I could see it play out. And Sarah and I were watching this and observing this. We'll get into why perhaps we were on mission more than on a vacation here in a moment. But it was fascinating to see that dynamic. So we saw, for example, if you were to look at a bar where people are dancing and having drinks at the surface level, if you looked up, you could see this row of egregores wanting to come in and using whatever crack possible to come in. And so in your case, one of the cracks, of course, was the drugs and also the Ouija board. That's a big crack. You opened up a door right there, right? So when you are traveling or when you are in areas where a lot of people around you are opening up cracks and doors, you are also more susceptible and vulnerable to catching, so to speak, either a mind virus like the tulpa or even bigger, this huge egregore. And so this egregore was playing out this role again in the different dynamics between tourists and locals of the raping and pillaging. And not necessarily on the raping in a sexual way, but raping like taking energy, like and not giving anything in return. So that type of frequency was at play on one hand. And the island occupants are kind of responding in a mean way. And I'm not sure how I can say this on YouTube. Kind of in a karmic loop, letting it happen, but also passively, aggressively contributing to that egregore. I guess that's the best way I could say it for now. So anyways, that was fascinating to watch. And of course, somebody says vampires. Yes. Okay, so that's what I'm getting into there too. So on the surface level, there was the egregores coming down, but there were physical beings walking and interacting here as vampires. And we saw them as old slave masters coming back in this incarnation, reusing, raping, pillaging the same people. And their faces and their energies were distorted. And then when they were close to these people that they want to suck their energy from, they were kind of more in alignment. Dude, it was so fascinating to watch, but at the same time, difficult to watch. And I said, okay, I need to do a show on this. And this has something to do with the veils being thinner now and us having even more ability to see that.
Yes.
So for the question you're asking, hey, did you have protection? It's not just about the protection, but it's also about having the eyes to see and having the frequency to be able to see in that particular dimension. Your thoughts there before I go too far, Meg?
I'm also feeling really strong. Yes, like our psychic senses are going to be open in ways we have never had them open in this lifetime yet so far, with now Saturn in Pisces, with Neptune in Pisces at the same time. But it's also when we actually, what Spirit's telling me right now, when we physically see people, looking at people, because not everybody is actually a person. And that's something that I think Spirit's telling me right now is going to become more and more highlighted. And I have lots of stories about that. And like, it's not just the energies and feeling the energies, whether we feel that or psychically see that or know that. It's also, we're going to be able to see through people around us way easier of who's actually a person, who's not a person, who's maybe an ET, who's maybe an elemental, who's maybe this, who's maybe that. It is so much trippier than life is really cool because it's just really trippy. It's really, there's so much going on.
Well, you know, metaphorically, the movie They Live, of course, in the movie, he finds these glasses that enable him to see outside the veil of the pretend reality he lives in and sees the actual reality where the world is infected by these, I don't know what, extraterrestrials or demons, you know, perpetuating this matrix of control, the obey, you can see it on the screen now. That was a fascinating movie. But I think what you're alluding there too is that as we are on the road to self-mastery and we're going through our own core wounds, eventually our eyesight is not polluted by all of that energy, and we are able to recognize that in the people around us. Barry Hansen says, JC, this show is better than 007 movies. Okay. I'm Claude, Jean-Claude. Okay. I'm just too giddy today. I don't know what it is. All right. So folks in the audience, if you have questions about this, because I know a lot of people are saying, okay, the show is on fire. Thank you, DB. Appreciate that. If you have questions about this right now, how to deal with this, if you've had other experiences similar to that and you want to have maybe some insights on that, yes, please put them in the chat now in the high caps, and we're going to try to address them here. Again, this show today is a little bit of a departure from what we normally do on Manifest Destiny, but in order to manifest our destiny, the big thing is we can't have this. Let me see if I can bring up one imagery of that. Where was it go? Kind of like this. Well, this one is this. What's that?
That one that you were about to show, is it from Paranormal Activity or something?
Oh, which one? Not this one.
There's that black demon in the corner.
That one there?
Yeah, that's super creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy as fuck. But I'm looking for the one where something's talking in your ear at night. I thought I had it. Well, this one is kind of similar to that. Okay, so let's look at this one as an image there. Okay, so we'll get into how to deal with this in a moment. And a lot of people are saying, oh my God, okay. What was that? I kind of laughed, JC. Okay, thank you. I think they're laughing at the Bond joke. Did you guys know I did a Bond spoof video 2 years ago? If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It was really cool.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
You know what's coming through, JC, really strong right now is how we used to live, like pre 100, 150 years ago, okay? The veils were way thinner than they are now. And it was en masse in most of the cultures, you know, not just indigenous cultures, but even in the cities of Europe and the new cities of the New World, that there are beings that are not physical. That was, most people understood that. That was the mainstream knowledge. And then when the Rockefellers came in and made mainstream medicine and the education system, it was, you know, taken away from us, that wisdom, that knowing. And this is what's coming back with this huge Pisces energy of Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, and even Pluto and Aquarius, is we are not just these physical beings. There's so many more levels to what is going on. And there's reasons why, you know, there's, I guess, superstitions and certain laws of living that a lot of cultures have for protection that now we look at as superstition, right? But
they're like, oh, that's hogwash. That's old, you know, mentality. Didn't know what they're talking about. Yeah, exactly. Carol says, so GC, you literally saw them squiggly and blurry. Yeah, kind of. That's the way you see it. Just like, you know how, Meg, I don't know if you know this, but when you're looking straight on, you have the ability to see clearly in 3D. But the way the cones of your eyes are, if you don't look, but you're not focusing from the side, you can catch stuff in other dimensions. And that's why you kind of see things, then you look, you focus on it, it's not there, but you have the ability to see in other dimensions on the side of your eyes, similar to cats and dogs do. And for some people, and I think it has to do with the energetic alignments as Meg is talking about now, we're starting to be able to bring that focus of the other dimensions to the front of our eyes too. And sometimes that catches you by surprise. What else did I want to say about that squiggly face? Oh, there's another person. And I said to Sarah, I said, Sarah, look, that person is not even touching the ground. So they were walking, but kind of like floating over the ground. Like just very hard to perceive, but really not with enough weight to actually say that the ground was supporting that person. And she's like, oh yeah. And I saw that in Mount Adams also a couple of years ago. In this case, it was on the light side. It was a woman embodied, a fairy embodied into a physical woman's body. And she was barely touching the ground as she was walking to. It was so evident. And I came up to her and I said, are your feet hurting? Like I had this huge download. And she kind of looked at me. She says, yeah, because I'm not used to walking in my dimension. That was her answer, by the way. And Sarah and I were looking at each other. Okay. We got you. We saw you. Anyway, that was fascinating. But that's on the light side of things. The stuff that was floating on this particular island, it wasn't pleasant by any means.
Can I just say another thing, JC? Because yes, our clairvoyance is going to be opening up a lot more and more where we physically see things, right? With the veils becoming less thing. But another form of psychic ability of clairvoyance is seeing more in your mind.
Yeah.
Which we use the term imagination, but in a lot of shamanic cultures, everything we imagine is actually our intuition.
Yeah.
It's actually not just imagination and something made up. So when we're in those situations, like let's say, you know, if you're ever in a restaurant and you see someone walking in the restaurant, and then in your mind's eye imagination, you see like a weird being while you're looking at that person. That's also your clairvoyance. Clairvoyance isn't just physically seeing a, you know, Tupelo attached to someone. It's also what we see on the mind when we look at people, when we're in certain places. And I think that's going to help people too, knowing that, because we all are naturally intuitive, right? It's not just psychically seeing something physically.
Well, to give you an example there, somebody says, and you call this a vacation, GC? It was actually a great vacation. But again, because I was able to detach from that. Had I not been aware of that, maybe I would have brought shit back that I didn't want to, or maybe I would have had more drama than I would have wanted to on the vacation. Like this type of stuff usually results in drama, basically, right? Or in thwarting you from your life path. In some cases for the better, we can get into that in another show. But in this particular case, more to the drama side, again, the idea here is to reduce frequencies in order to create fear, in order to create food for these entities, right? And that's where we want to starve them. But once you see it, they're kind of like no match for you. Like that's the other point here. And so I don't want to scare anybody here. So yeah, it was still a vacation. Somebody says, wow, JC always brings the goods from his adventures. Well, thank you. So on what you just said too, just to give you an example, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was on this treasure hunting trip with my buddies in New Mexico. And there was this place that we would go at night because we were basically exerting ourselves like crazy in the desert all day long, hiking mountains, moving equipment, all this stuff. And by the nighttime, like we were sore everywhere. And we would go to this natural hot spring, and amazing hot springs with amazing minerals, like really a magical place that was revered by some of our native ancestors there. And so we would go there at night to relax. And at one point, I was sitting in the hot tub, and we had done this protection, I guess, ceremony, and we had set intentions for the next day, asked for protection on the sacred site that we're on to make sure there's no, you know, bad spirits that would hurt or harm us or anything like that. And so as we were doing that, I was looking basically on this a spring, and I could see in front of me what looked like blue barbed wire, sparkly blue barbed wire, turning like that, like in like in a tornado shape,
Mhm.
and then going into the water. And so as I'm looking at that, I'm kind of transfixed, but I'm imagining this in my head, of course, right?
Right.
And so just for the fun of it, and I was guided to do so, I take my hand and I start doing this to kind of follow it in the water. And then Joe, who's sitting about 10 feet away from me, he says, "Holy fuck, you see that too?" So I thought it was so to your point, or when you see inside with your third eye, with your imagination, it's much more than you think. It could actually be physicality or another reality. So basically put it that way. So here was the confirmation, just because I spoke it and I interacted with it, other people there who had that same eyesight to see had that reaction. So when Joe said that, Dave was looking at it, he couldn't see it. So in some cases, Dave could see stuff that we couldn't see. In some other cases, Joe and I could see things. So we all resonate in different frequencies. It's not to say that one person is better than the other, but just to the point that you're saying now, as you get comfortable with this process of, I don't want to say imagining things, but your thought is that you're imagining things. You really need to pay attention to whether or not it's imagination or your intuition or your other six senses telling you that there's something there that you're not necessarily picking up with all your traditional five senses. Meg, you're nodding your head out to that.
Yeah, I believe everything we imagine is real at some level. Everything we imagine is real. Yeah. And that's why tuplas are real and egregors are real, because our thoughts manifest our reality. And everything gets created from our thoughts. So it's really powerful stuff to be aware of what we're talking about right now.
So what did you say? Our thoughts manifest destiny? So we're full circle on this conversation, guys. I absolutely love it. Okay, so let's talk about some of the protections you kind of alluded to at the beginning. Let's start how you deal with this. I'll share how I now try to deal with this. But you said something earlier before we get into that. I'll show a picture here, guys. It's going to freak you out a little bit. So just as a forewarning. Oh, where did it go? Wait, I have to use it from the other. Wait, do I have it here? It's kind of creepy looking. No? Do I have it? Okay, hold on. I did, because I think I just converted it. Hold on. This one here. Okay, so be forewarned. It's kind of creepy. I think it was on Instagram a couple of days ago. Somebody sent me this. If you could see people's energies, you wouldn't sleep with just anyone. Right? So that's creepy as fuck, to say the least. And of course, this is in physicality, but it's also talking about what is attached to that person and perhaps what you're attaching yourself to when you're having casual sex with people. So keeping that in mind also in the context here of how do you protect your energies moving forward, Meg?
Well, first, I think it's perfect that we're talking about this, only 3 days after Saturn has gone into Pisces, because we are in the in-between. We are in a very elevated spiritual frequency right now. And all of these topics are very important for us to be talking about. And when it comes to how to protect our energy to, spiritual beings, spiritual things, that's Pisces. Pisces rules all that in life. We need to go to the opposite sign, what I was saying, Virgo, to balance that, which is what? Our physical health. If you are physically strong in your diet, in your routine, whatever resonates with you, in drinking good water, in your physical maintenance, your energy level is really, really high. Okay, just from what you're eating. And that's all different depending. I know some of us eat meat, some of us are vegans, some of us do certain things. We're all unique and beautiful in our own ways. But following what works for your body that makes you feel the most healthy is, to me, the most number one way to protect your energetic field. It's what we're putting in through the food, through the music we listen to, through who we're allowing around. Everything we ingest into our field will show us how strong we are energetically. If there's things popping in our head like, oh yeah, when I'm around that person, I feel kind of drained, that's an energy leak. Oh yeah, when I eat that, bag of candy every day that gives me a headache afterwards, that's an energy leak.
Really
so
good.
Pay attention to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. And it's funny you mentioned being strong, exercising, eating well. In my show today, the work correspondent, guys, if you haven't seen it, Off the Hook, again, a crazy show. We're already at 153,000 views
Wow.
in the last 2 hours. Ricardo Bossi also talked about this because I asked him how to manage stress in the body, seeing as we're at war. A lot of people don't know we're at war, and they don't know why they're having all of these issues, but it's all coming down to the fact that they have an overload of stress, even though they don't recognize it, and that stress has moved them out of their normal operational window. And so he gave good advice on how to bring that body back into that operational window, and a big part of that was to be physically strong. That doesn't mean be fit and be Arnold Schwarzenegger or Mr. Olympia. It means be strong for you. So not just your body, but your mind, your spirit, and your soul. So go check that out. He had great advice there. Now, in addition to what you just said, I would say another good protection is to know who you are.
Yes.
And you're going to say, well, I know who I am. I'm JC. Well, that's the name that somebody else gave the meat sack that you are currently occupying. So I'm talking about the person, the thing, the entity, the soul, the energy that's occupying the meat sack that somebody else named JC. Who's that? And as you understand who that is, you can now find the limitation as to other thoughts and mechanisms and entities around you that are not you. So once you find the boundaries and the l'encadrement, I don't know how else to say it, of who you are, it's very difficult for other things to come in and invade your thoughts, your being, your physicality, your emotions, and all of that. And so I think that's very important. And for people watching this, they say, well, I kind of know who I am, but what do you mean by that, JC? I would say if you went a little bit further and say, well, who are you on this planet right now and what your mission is? If you're clear on that, all these little attacks, they might affect you, but they're going to affect you in a very small way. You'll get right back up and you'll carry on with your mission. If you are rudderless in your life right now, and if you feel like you're a pinball in a pinball machine being banged around by social media, by people around you, by the fear porn and all that, then I would suggest, okay, you don't yet know who you are and you don't yet know what your mission is. You might have an inkling, and that's the first step, and that's great, but you need to really press that down a little bit further. So knowing that, again, will help you a great deal in separating you from other entities, including the tulpas and the egregores here. So that's another idea. Now, on top of knowing who you are, I would say, I'll give you a practice for that too. If you're in a relationship with somebody that you have known for a long time, you feel safe, and you don't have the red trigger marks that Meg was just talking about. Oh, my energy feels sucked when I'm with this person, all that. If you're a person that you feel trusted, you feel safe with, one of the things you can try is the Yab Young position. So when you're sitting face to face with somebody, and do a breathing process. And the breathing goes like this. As the other person is exhaling, you are inhaling. And as you are exhaling, the other person is inhaling. So you're creating a loop with your breath, with your ki. And at a certain point, within maybe 10 minutes of that, and not even with some cases, if you're really in tune with the other person, you're going to start melding your energies. And at a certain point, your consciousness is going to be in the other person. And then their consciousness is going to be in yours. And you're going to be able to practice and find the limits of where your energy stops and where theirs begin, and vice versa. And so this is a good practice. Okay, you don't want to do this with a stranger, of course. For people who are in romantic relationships and who are safe in that, absolutely an amazing practice to do. Again, strengthening your boundaries and your energies, knowing where they stop and start, really helps you determining when something is hitting at that wall or at your radar or your periphery. So that is a very good practice as well. That sounds very sexy too, JC. Okay. Well, it could be about sex too. And some people use it in the Yab Young with actual intercourse. It creates an even stronger loop. It creates the actual toroidal field when you're in that position, but that's for another show. Got in trouble for saying that on YouTube 2 years ago. So that's another practice there. And again, just knowing who you are, where your energy is, fabulous. And then there was the idea, and we kind of alluded at the beginning, is if you're in this position now where you're debating and you're having thoughts that you know you've determined now are not yours, what to do with them. So in my case, I had to give it love. At first, I was arguing with it. I was angry with it. All I was doing after I realized was giving it more power and in giving it more ability to affect me. So it took me a while to realize, oh, I'm going to catch more flies with honey than vinegar in this particular case too. So the love frequency really is what kicked it out of the way. But at that time, I had been infected for months, and this was a big problem for me. It was really, really, it was a nasty one. It was just like it was so bad. And again, but I had to face over 1,000 people in a room who, in their eyes, looked at me in my eyes, knowing that they were dying of this thing. So this was true for them, and on top of that, the huge energy egregore on top of that. It was absolutely devastating for a person at my level or my weak level of shamanism to be able to deal with that. Now, people don't get to deal with that on a daily basis, but there's variances of that, from the Ouija board to the people at the bar who are letting these demons in. Does that kind of answer all the questions? You guys have more questions in the chat? Meg, do you have more questions? What do you think?
Yeah, I also just want to say that, when we are around certain groups of people, like concerts or festivals or events where there's alcohol and there's drugs, there's all kinds of things flying around there. So we want to be very aware of that, particularly with Saturn and Pisces now. A lot of us are going to also be feeling more of a pull to kind of tune out, because there's going to be so much, going on in that Piscean illusionment and fantasy world is so strong. So if you do feel to drink some alcohol or smoke some weed or whatever it is, just be very mindful who you're doing it with and where you're doing it with. And especially if anybody does plant medicine, which I personally don't do plant medicine at the moment, but if you do, you want to make sure you're doing that in a totally sacred, safe space with a really real deal practitioner, because I have had so many clients had things attached to them from ceremonies where that wasn't done properly. That's like one of the number one ways, for sure.
I would say today, my humble opinion, most of these ayahuasca ceremonies now, it is the place to go catch egregors and tulpas from other people in the room. It's absolutely. I believe. Can I share the story? Somebody close to you told me a story that they wanted to die in that exact. Do you want to tell that story? Can we tell that story? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, you can share a story. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, but you can.
Hold on, let me just put it in the private chat just in case.
Okay.
And
yeah, you can share that.
Okay, well, why don't you share it?
About when he did ayahuasca. So my fiance went to Peru like 5 years ago with his best friend. And, it looked like one of the best ayahuasca centers to go to. It was very highly rated. It's hard when you don't actually know anyone who does the plant medicine what to do. So it looked like a really good place. Flew all the way to Peru from Belgium. My fiance's from Belgium, which is a very long travel. You go into the middle of the jungle, right? So a lot of these places are like you go into the middle of the jungle, which makes it feel like it's legit and it's legit. Like for real, right? We're going.
I've got the bug bites to prove it too. It's so legit.
Yeah, and anybody can just go. Yeah. And I believe they didn't properly ask permission of the plants, if the people even needed to do it. And my fiance said that when he was in ceremony, it just felt he could feel everybody's stuff. He's a very sensitive empath. And it was so intense and such a not good energy that it was like, I think 5 days of doing ayahuasca ceremony straight. And he ended it early because it was just not good, just really not good energy. So we don't, nothing against plant medicine, but it's medicine, and not all of us need certain medicines like all the time.
There's that, and from the Taoist point of view too, I'll share my personal opinion. Endogenously produced hormones and chemicals are coming out from you for a specific reason. So we create our own DMT, and that's made from our body for our body's highest good. When you're taking external sources, whether that's caffeine, DMT, or anything else, it's a chemical compound that is not produced in your body and could have adverse effects. Now, does it help some people? Yes. In some cases, is it a crutch to get to a certain level? Yes, absolutely. But what we're saying here too is it's not just about the plant medicine, it's about the other people running the show and the
Yeah.
other people around you as well, their level at all that. And that creates a whole new realm of not disaster, but potentiality for unknowns and for a more difficult path of the learning. Okay, so let's go back. These the plant medicines are teachers, right? And so you're going there to learn something. It's a learning process, but this learning process is often skewed by the other students that are there, and no more so than now. And I think you kind of explained it with all the astrology and the energies. Now is the time of the big purge. Now is the time of these big masks falling of all these gurus, and all of these entities have no place to go when they're forced out energetically out of frequency from one person, and they want to survive. So what do? They jump into the next person right over just to continue their livelihood, right? They're just trying to survive, basically. And so right now we're seeing a lot of that because the planet is vibrating to a certain level, kicking them out of certain realms, and they're desperately trying to find safe havens. And now more so than ever. So if you watch any of those vampire shows where they're all running at 6 o'clock in the morning because they don't want to find the sunlight, they're looking for the shade, right? They're looking for all the dark spots. This is what frantically is happening on a global scale, generally speaking, and probably times 100 now at any of these plant ceremony sessions. My opinion right now of how I see this happening. AC State says, thank you, JC, for sharing your wise perspective. Well, thank you. I'm not sure it's wise, but it's mine. It is my perspective. I hope you can glean from that something that helps you in your path. And that's the whole point of having these conversations and sharing our experiences. Somebody was asking me about the Yab-Yum. This is the position. And you can tell there that's the toroidal field through the breath work. So if you want to take a snapshot of that, go ahead. And I'm telling you, try that. And what's interesting after, okay, I have to go a little bit further. I've been guiding to share this. Yeah. When you do this practice, at first, like I said, you're going to melt with your other partner. You're going to find that your consciousness is coming in and out of you in these loops of energies. But what you're also going to find out, if you can stand in that position for a long time, and this, of course, you do with somebody who you trust, you resonate with, and all that has the right frequency with you, you're going to create an even bigger chi bubble than you had at the beginning. And you're like, well, how is that possible? That's possible because in divine union, you are more than the sum of your parts. So the 1 + 1 does not equal 2. It actually equals 3, and then 6 and 9. So, that's a whole other conversation. So when you get out of this position after a while, and you've done this breath work for a long time, you might find yourself walking through the hallway of your house, going back to your bedroom, for example, and feeling as though your energy bubble is like scraping on both sides of the wall. You're now bigger than your hallway, energetically speaking. So you've expanded your key out. So this is the other point of why I was saying that. One, you know where your energy starts and stops so that you can feel intrusions coming into your space. But two, you're extending out your key, your force field, even further out so that you have more time to react when you're being attacked by these energies, by these tulpas and egregors. So thank you for ever asking me that, because that makes sense too. It was an added piece there that I forgot to add. Okay, resonates with my experience, JC. Thank you, Jill. Appreciate that. Meg, are we there? Was there anything else we wanted to share? Did you see any questions from the chat we needed to answer? That can you post a picture again, Terry? Yes. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I'm just scrolling for more of your questions, maybe a little bit higher up. Guys, if you had a question and you really want to ask it again, put it in a high caps. It'll be easier for me and Meg to pull it.
That's something interesting here. Is it Kat Donnelly says, is it possible for energies or entities to come through TV while watching movies?
I would say yes.
I would say yes too. I think that's a really good question.
Well, okay. So let's say in the last 3 months, and I've explained this on the show, I was having a lot more heartburn issues, heart palpitations. I could tell that my vagus nerve system was basically fried. So I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I won't drink coffee. So at the last staff retreat, I was okay. I can't drink coffee anymore. It's too much for my body. I tried to change my diet, try to sleep a little bit better, but I was struggling there for a couple of months. Now I'm kind of out of it, but still I'm affected by what's happening in the world.
Mhm.
And so I have the job of decoding the news. I do all of these shows and I stay on top of what's happening in order to be able to be relevant and on point with you guys when I do these shows, right? But at the same time, that does take a lot of my my energy. It takes a lot of my mental space to hold the story so that I can share it with you guys, decode it, remove the fear from it and all that as it is what we do on the show. But that still takes its toll. Now, I would say in the last maybe week or two, I'm starting to recognize that being in this community right now, I need to. How do I say it? Okay, let me backtrack 3 more weeks. Let's backtrack a month, and this will make sense. Bear with me. So Sarah was watching a show on TV, and sometimes after I finish I work like 16 hours a day, guys. As you know, I wake up, I do the production, I do the schedules, I do the shows and all that. And what is it now? It's 9 o'clock. I'm not done. So by the time I'm done, it's a big day, right? And sometimes I try to relax, and I'll just watch maybe half a movie or half an hour of Netflix with Sarah before I go to bed. And she was watching this series on Netflix, The Last of Us. And this is about mushrooms invading humans. And it's kind of like The Walking Dead. So basically the zombie apocalypse type of movie. It's a cool concept movie nonetheless. But as I was watching it, I was physically not feeling well.
Yeah.
And I'm usually pretty good at watching gory stuff and all that. And again, using this detachment, using all the techniques we've just used now to not have anything come in. But I found that in the last month, I tell Sarah, I can't watch this. I just can't watch this. And I was instinctively asking her, hey, when I finish the show, can we put on a comedy? And she's like, well, there's no good comedies on TV anymore. That was like 10 years or 20 years ago, remember? And now it's all crap. It's all, propaganda, Armageddon, all this stuff, right? So anyways, I got to that point of understanding too that right now I need to be very, very wary of my energy and what else is being affected. And I'm sure for a lot of the audience members here, seeing everything that's going out, all the war reporting, the attacks, and all this stuff, the fear in the eyes of the people around you in your lives who are realizing now perhaps the big mistake they've made by taking some products, and the fear of how that might have shortened their lifespans and all that stuff. We're picking up all on that, whether we know it or not, and it's affecting our nervous system. And so now to watch other shows that keep piling on that negative energy is probably the worst thing you can do. So anyways, I took it upon myself to say, okay, cut out the coffee. That was just the energetic level of vagus nerve system being irritated. And now also try to cut out anything that doesn't make me laugh. So that was a big part some of the discussions we were having last week about dancing, listening to good music, what makes you feel good. We all really need to work at this right now, more so than we think. We all know we're stressed. Like I'm looking at you, you look at me. I know you're stressed. You know I'm stressed. And people watching the show too, they know they're stressed, but they have no fucking idea how really stressed they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely through the roof. They're like your body's been put through the how do you call it, the meat grinder. Energetically speaking. So we really need to stop back and say, okay, what do I need right now to just be happy, just to smile, feel like I want to dance, just to disconnect from all of this crap, Meg?
Yes, and exactly. And that's that Leo energy that we are missing, that's what I was saying before. We have to actively go, okay, yeah, there's this Last of Us that everybody's talking about. It's being programmed from every fucking direction for us to watch The Last of Us. And I watched it too. And I was immediately like, there's things coming through and this is not making me feel good. Like I felt that too. Yeah. So it's the energy of Leo, the heart, the arts, having fun. We actively have to go, you know what, let's watch a comedy, or you know what, let's turn the TV off and put that record on that we love to listen to, or you know what, let's just go have sex, or you know what, let's go outside and play a game with the animals or something. We actively have to be doing those things because it's in the collective energy with the astrology of so much going on. Like you said, there's so much purging, intense things. It's so important what you just said, JC. That was such a great point of really being aware of what we're ingesting, for sure.
JC's vibration is high. Well, it's not as high as I would like. Again, like I'm honest with you too. Like I'm struggling, and I
Yeah.
know you guys are struggling too. And but that's why I'm sharing the story with you guys, and that's why I hope you guys are going to share the story with other people, your friends, your families, and all that. Not just necessarily share this video, and yes, I do appreciate if you do that, but just like talk about this stuff right now, because if we don't, we're kind of we're not helping each other, right?
Yeah.
We're all pretending to be strong where we're not. And I understand how important it is to have a positive mindset, to be strong and all that. But it's also important to say, hey, sometimes uh, I'm drowning here. I need help. Sweetie, can you help me out? Or husband, can you help me out? Like, you know what I mean? And really support each other. And I think this is what is so beautiful in this community. I see it in the chat all the time. People are supporting each other in the chats. I'm so proud of that, guys. You can't believe how happy about it I am. And I'm so proud of you, Meg. My God, in the last 2 weeks, the Divine Feminine Oracle show, the way you ran that show with Sophie and Solretta, you did a fabulous job. And again, I could tell reading the comments that what we're doing and what you were doing with those two shows also was holding the space for that frequency, for people to come back, recharge, push out all that crap in the world, and know they're not alone, and know that maybe other people like them also are struggling, but that sharing that with each other actually makes us stronger and not weaker. I think that's a big point in here too. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. We need to be, I think pretty much if you're here right now, you know, in this community, unless you're someone listening that's just found this video and you've never watched any of the Beyond Mystic stuff before, you know what the fuck is going on. And you know so much information. And like JC said, our nervous systems are, maybe it is a fight or flight mode, but our nervous systems are not the most calm, okay? Because the collective is not calm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we really need to be there for each other 100%. And for me personally, I've started doing Sundays. I don't look at anything. I don't look at anything.
Good for you.
I try not to look at any social media, anything. And I noticed by the end of the day, it's like, wow, I feel like I'm in the 90s again. Like I had more time during the day. I feel calmer, even from just doing that one day. Even if, just a suggestion, you guys, just like one day or one afternoon and evening where you don't look at anything and you just do things that fill you up with joy, right? Make a difference on your system.
For sure. Inspiring results. GC, why don't you ever put yourself on the main screen while you're talking? I don't know. Maybe I'm shy. We'll just leave that one by. Mary says, it sounds like JC's been overworking. Well, yeah, I am. But at the same time, I know who I am and I know my mission. And right now, like my guides are telling me, like it's all hands on deck.
Yes.
So on one hand, I'm struggling. Meg is struggling. Sophie, Julie, Soretta, everybody on the show, Janine, we're all struggling to hold this container because we're all frailed right now, more than we ever been on this show. This community, we've been through a lot. And as all of this stuff is coming out, even though we knew all of this stuff, now we're seeing it for real. So it's harder for us to digest. But now we're also having to deal with people around us who are like, holy fuck, Meg was right. She's not a crazy wacky witch. She was right, right? So we're having to deal with all of these new energies, and it's putting a lot of pressure. So there's that. But two, there's the understanding here in our mission and what we're doing that we are also having to up level. So this is why we're doing more shows on YouTube. We're doing more shows on Rumble. We're doing more shows on pay-per-view to create all of these different containers to receive these new energies and these new people who are just now disconnecting from the mainstream media, understanding that they've been lied to and that they perhaps have been maimed. And they're looking for a new community. They're looking for a new footing to understand the transitory nature of this reality, right? And so we are all working and we're all overdrive and we're all hearing our guides, all of us, to try to be here, produce content, be responsible with the content we're producing, being at the tip of the spear of the content, but also being relevant to you guys. Not just the community that's been here since the beginning of Beyond Mystic, but all of this onslaught of new people coming in. And I think, yeah, when you say, Mary, sounds like you've been overworking, I am, but it's because of that. We're at a critical stage here. And again, I'll go back to Recorder Bosie. he was talking about the fact that we are in this 5G warfare, this fifth generational unrestricted warfare, and it's a war for your minds. But what's happening here is that people like us here on the screen, and for a lot of members in the audience, we are engaged in the sixth dimensional warfare, where we're using these psychic abilities now to fight this war. And he's saying that is the next war, and that is very powerful. And this is why a lot of energies, a lot of attacks are being hoisted and directed at the Wu community. The fight for this narrative is at the peak right now. In order for the control matrix to recapture any measure of semblance of authority, they need to quash the Wu. And so far, the Wu is growing, and it's growing leaps and bounds every day, thanks to all the viewers who are coming online. You're about to pick some cards on that, Meg.
Yeah, so I was actually just feeling to say, and then the cards are confirming it exactly, that spirit is always with us. Our ancestors are always with us. Our soul appointed angels and guides are always with us. Our soul family is always with us. There's literally so many more energies and beings of love and light that are with each of us, that are with the collective of us. And they are just waiting. Literally, I'm hearing them saying at any moment for us to give them permission for their support. So it's not just us that are all in our physical bodies in this community talking about how, yeah, it's stressful and there's challenges and how to deal with it. There's so many beings on the other higher realms just waiting for us to say, you know, for me, example, at the end of the day, okay, like Archangel Michael, ancestors, can you please cleanse my energy? Or can you please help me feel more calm? Or can you please help that, you know, thing I'm feeling on my heart? I've also been feeling that, what you're saying, JC, on your heart. And I've been noticing a lot of people say that maybe it has to do with those that have gotten the you know what, and we're feeling that collectively. But giving permission.
Like sympathetic pains, when somebody's pregnant, the husband feels the same pains. How do you call that in English? Is it sympathetic pain?
Maybe.
It's not a joke, but there's a medical term for what you're just saying. We're feeling the pain that other people are feeling. We think it's ours, but it's not. We are sympathetically picking up on those energies. Yeah, keep going.
And I'm actually feeling that they're coming through. So like all of our guides, everyone coming through so strong right now, not just to help us personally, but it's actually going to make the collective energy stronger of the highest timeline available if they're also involved working through us physically and we giving them the permission. So they're inviting anyone who resonates with this to maybe even right now in this moment, just say out loud, like, I give permission for my soul appointed team of guides and ancestors, star family, soul family that's with me to assist in all ways for my highest good. Keep me in a positive vibe, to keep me protected, to keep me in a loving state, to keep me in my heart, to show me the way of what is in alignment for my highest good to be ingesting through physical means, energetic means, all those ways. Yeah. I'm just feeling them so strong. And then I picked some Lenormand cards. So this is something not everybody knows about. And this is one of my favorite kind of divination tools, which is a system called the Enchanted Lenormand. And it actually comes from France and Belgium. And you can get these on Amazon. They're so, so cool. And they're really easy to understand. And one way to use the Lenormand is you pull 3 cards together to kind of make like a sentence as an answer. How's the best way for me to do this? So actually they came out this way. So I said, Spirit, I was feeling them so strongly wanting to say, ask us for support.
Yeah.
Allow us to assist you in all ways for your highest good. And then I asked for a card confirmation. And these are literally the 3 cards of spirit, like spiritual assistance. The stars in the Lenormand, our star family, the higher vibrations that are here. This one's called the Diviner, which this represents Marie Lenormand, who invented the Lenormand deck. This represents our guides. So we've got our star family, our guides, and the elementals, the earth beings. Sorry, guys, it's hard for me to hold all these up. But basically, the Lenormand is confirming what I'm saying. So Thank you,
Wow, that's a
Spirit.
powerful pull right there. I really like
Yeah,
that.
it's very powerful. It's like they're, and again, it's not just about being there to support us. When they are given permission, it's going to help the whole collective. It's going to help the whole ball rolling. It's going to help the whole thing manifest.
And part of that too, I remember going through a big part of this process in 2008, 7, 8, 9, and I was feeling a lot of guilt going through the process of eliminating people in my life that no longer served my higher purpose. And I
Mm,
know a lot of people who are watching the show are going through that right now too, with this big purge. They're starting to realize that too. And necessarily, well, not necessarily, but as a result of being human and having compassion and all that, we sometimes feel guilty for that. And so I want you to talk about guilt here, how to deal with that guilt, but also Meg. But also before I do that, this is when those guys can come in, because if your table is full, your dinner table is full, they cannot come in and occupy seats. And
mm,
so it is up to you to make space, as Meg is saying here, for those guys. And those 3 cards you just pulled there, part of that is you saying, hey, I'm ready, I want new people here. But you also have to do the work and create that space, and also try to extricate yourselves from dealing with the guilt frequency, because that, of course, changes your frequency to the lower bandwidth and is not conducive to inviting higher energy beings in your field. Go ahead.
mhm. So with the guilt, which is funny because as soon as the products started coming out and our loved ones, our brothers and sisters started taking them, that was the main thing I said, and it's making me even emotional right now, that I said to the people I love, is that I do not give you permission to put guilt onto me when you learn what you've done.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a huge thing coming up.
Yeah.
And didn't you bring it up in an article recently on one of the shows? Like, it was like, why
I,
didn't
I either I dreamt, but you and I have had this conversation not too long ago. So maybe we had it in the dreamscape.
JC, you brought it up either on this show or on Janine or something. You brought up an article that said, why haven't the unvaxxed,
Oh, done enough. Yeah. That
right?
was about a month ago. Yeah, I see what you mean now.
So this is going to be coming up. So when that guilt comes up,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's our own coming from ourselves or
Mm.
coming from someone else projecting us, I would say, let's feel it first of all,
Yeah.
because it needs to be processed. So turn it off, turn off the screens, get somewhere comfortable, whether that's in your bed, and get a tissue box or maybe outside. Let yourself feel that guilt.
Yeah.
Let yourself feel it. Probably we're going to cry it out. And then I say, hand it over to God, hand it over to the angels, hand it over to universe. Ask for it to be transmuted into love and comfort and whatever you want to transmute it into. But let yourself feel it first.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, letting yourself feel it. For some people, they'll say, man, that's too hard, man. I'm going to get stuck in that. And I get it. That is the fear of getting stuck in those feelings. But again, that's the whole point of the self-mastery. Going through those core wounds, going through the crucible, as some people call it, is an important practice. And every time you do it and you do it successfully, so maybe you take baby steps first, you get stronger and stronger doing it. And then suddenly going through this process is not as scary as it was when it was your first time going through this process. I hope that makes sense for you guys there too, because I heard a whole bunch of people saying, ooh, I don't know, Meg. I don't want to feel it. I want to pretend it's not there. But that is also not helpful.
But you know what? As intuitive empaths and healers, which I know a lot of us in this community are, it's not even just our guilt, it's also the collective guilt of those who did take those products, their guilt around doing that. Those who did do the digital IDs, their guilt around doing that. Those who did do the Vax passes, their guilt around doing that. Even the people who have sold themselves out, their guilt around. There's a lot of, that's a good thing you brought up, JC, because there's a lot of guilt.
And that guilt, okay, so similar to the Egregors in Africa in a specific area that were affected by AIDS, and then in the Caribbean with the slavery, slave trade, and all that stuff. So too now is this Egregor being created by this guilt And so again, we're right on topic here with this tonight. It's so important because if we can recognize it collectively and the people watching the show, and this is why there's so much energy being brought to quash these shows, to quash the woo, to censor us and all this stuff. It's because together we are powerful enough to transmute that egregore of guilt. Because in a way, the bigger it is right now, it is serving its master in terms of reducing frequency and creating more food for those entities. So as you just said that, people now watching the show can recognize that happening around them and will act differently and will be a beacon of light to cut right through that. Whereas before we had the conversation, they might not have had that reflection. A few people at the beginning of the show said, oh, JC, those ugly pictures of those tulpas and egregores. Yeah, but once you see them, you recognize them and you can deal with them. That's the first part. That's the first part. As ugly as it may be, you need to be strong and you hold your frequency, know who you are and all that to be able to deal with them. But imagine how much more powerful we are now that we've had this conversation. Put this out in the open, not just the people watching here now too, but the shockwave of our voices talking about this concept, how that can affect generations. And I'm not just like, oh wow, JC, you're amazing. No. Ricardo Bosti was talking about this 6G warfare earlier today too, and he says what you guys are doing in the 6G war is much more profound than we're led to believe. We're led to believe that we're nothing, we have no power, but it's much to the contrary, and that's why they're putting so much energy against it. Meg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I just pulled some more cards on kind of like a general message for all of us, just based on everything that we've talked about so far.
Okay.
And I got the letter in the Lenormand, which is communication or news coming in, the flowers bouquet, which is gifts, and the sun, which is the most positive card. So what I feel from that is kind of like what we're doing right now, JC. We're just talking about like, we're sharing things with the audience that we prepared, but we're also talking about genuinely things from our heart that we're experiencing. Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but when we talk things out, just saying it out loud, we actually realize things that we may not have realized just when we're thinking about things in our own head. There's something about saying things out loud with people that we feel supported by that helps to heal and bring blessings and healing. Oh, the sun just fell. But yeah, communication is very important.
Yeah.
And it being with our like-minded, like I've been saying this to everyone in consultations, everybody lately, get in person with like-minded soul family.
Oh, for sure.
Even if it's just, some people say, I don't know anybody where I live. There's not a lot of people. There's got to be maybe a yoga class where you live. There's got to be a local medicine man somewhere near where you live. Mm-hmm. Go. There needs to be some in-person communication for us to get through this. That feels like what do you think of that, JC?
Oh, I totally agree. And for lack of people to go talk to the grandfather tree in your forest. You'd be surprised how long and deep and powerful that conversation is going to be if you just let it happen. Again, it's a lot of woo for one show, but yeah, I totally agree with you. Carole says verbal processing is so powerful. Yeah, because, we were talking about the digestive problems. Cliffy was picking this up also in the Web of Data reports that as this big ugly would come up, thoughts would come into our bodies and we would have to process immediately to the washroom, right? Mm-hmm. But by speaking it out loud too, we kind of like take it out instead of having to digest this in our stomach and have all of these cramps, these pains, these frequency hits to our body. When we bring it out loud, we can kind of like put them in the right slots in our mind and have a better understanding of it and transmute it a lot faster than perhaps our stomach can do. But our stomach is where we process a lot of those emotions. And so if you're feeling a lot of that pain and stress in your stomach, maybe you're not having the conversations you're supposed to have, whether that's with yourself, of course, and of course with your friends and your families, your like-minded community, like here on BeyondMystic. Man, we're already an hour and a half. This is so fast. I thought we were like at 40 minutes maybe, and I looked at the clock like, wow, it's been 40 minutes already. Oh, wow. Let's talk about these consultations. People who want to have a consultation with you, what does it look like now booking with you? How far are you out in the booking schedule, Meg?
I think it's June now.
Okay.
I think the earliest available options are June. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, folks, there's a reason. Of course, Meg is absolutely amazing. And if you read all the emails that I do with all the beautiful comments, you would know why. And you saw earlier in the comment section, a lot of people are having consultations with Meg, absolutely loving it. So give it a try. MaisonJupiter.com. And of course, if you use the coupon code BeyondMystic, you'll get an extra 10% off. The beautiful Elena is there in the chat as well. Of course, Elena, if you're just joining us now, we spoke about your amazing full moon meditation here for the Virgo full moon detox and purification. You guys can find that on BeyondMystic.academy. It was absolutely a powerful ceremony. And Elena, as you can see from the chat, I'm also detoxing now since this ceremony is very powerful. It shook up a lot of those toxins, both physically and emotionally in our bodies. I know I spoke to Julie earlier this morning, and she was feeling a lot of the process as well. So very powerful. And as Meg was saying here too, this is probably one for the books now that people can watch over and over again. And of course, if you register for this, you can watch it in replay. It's just as powerful as it was live, and you can watch it over and over again as a tool here to stay clean and ready to take in all of these new and positive and higher energies here in your life. Meg, before we go, any other topics you wanted to share? Any other messages coming down? Do you want to do a last poll, or did you have any other thoughts you wanted to share with you?
Yeah, we can do a last poll. I just see 6 fairy lights here. Says Meg, I need the name of those cards again.
Lenormand.
The Enchanted Lenormand. And it's a beautiful description. It's very easy to start using and understand. I love them.
Okay.
So they always give it gives it to you straight. That's what I love about it. So is there something specifically you want me to ask JC, or just a general message for all of us? What do you think?
What does universe want us to know about humanity having a better grasp and understanding of how to deal and transmute tulpas and egregores for our highest good?
Wow. Okay. Can you say that one more time?
What does universe want us to know in terms of getting a better understanding and ability to deal with tulpas and egregores for our highest good?
Okay. All right. Let's see. Wow. That's very interesting. So pulled 3 cards again. I got the ring, the house, and the fish. The ring is about commitment. And I feel like that is echoing what you were saying, JC, about knowing yourself, know thyself. So when we kind of commit to what JC was talking about of knowing ourselves, know thyself, that makes our energy field so strong. That makes us very strong. And it's not easy for things to attach when we're committed to knowing ourselves, our own boundaries, our own routines of health that we were kind of talking about.
Yeah.
Also, home, the home card. So having a clean, energetic base. The home is really important, not just in feng shui, but, just in all energetic practices. It's our base. So if we've got a messy home, or there's something not right with the home, that actually affects our energetic field as well. So we've got the echoes of what you were saying, JC, committing to knowing thyself, the home as an extension of our energetic field, and that's very important. And Spirit's actually showing me, like, especially during these times of Saturn and Pisces, maybe we want to create, and this is also a message for me too, a new kind of protective barrier around the home, because Spirit's showing me, like you were saying, these things that are going to be leaving their hosts, right? Because there's so much purging going on, are going to want to try to find places to go.
Right.
Right. One of my shamanic teachers one time was telling me the town where I grew up, there was a hospital that was getting, what's it called? Crashed down. It was getting demolished. And it was a really old hospital. And I remember him saying, wow, I don't want to be anywhere near those houses that live beside that hospital. If it's like hundreds of years, it's going to get crashed down. Because all the entities in there are just going to go into those homes if there's vulnerable spaces, vulnerable people. So the home is very, very important. The protection in the home, the cleanliness in the home. So crystal grids are great. There's many different, protection practices for the home, but I love crystal grids and putting even like statues of fairies or dragons or protective beings on the outskirts of the home, the four corners of the home.
Creating your sacred space right now for sure is big, big, big on your priority list.
Yeah, that is very big. And then we also got the fish card, which is interesting because this is about money and abundance, but I feel like it's coming through more about Pisces because that's the symbol of the fish.
Yeah.
So it's kind of confirming everything that we're talking about, that Virgo opposite sign of Pisces, we need to be focusing on our self-care isn't the right word, our maintenance of our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being with how much Pisces there is. So.
Wow. Great pull. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And Lorianne says, wow, we don't want this beautiful show to end. And somebody says, come on, guys, it's JC's third show today. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me leave you on this beautiful picture. And the picture, of course, this is from the staff retreat. You'll recognize just right next to me here the beautiful Elena, who does the meditations. She was there with us too. Just an amazing group, and our energy, our table, of course, was high vibe the whole time we were there. It was absolutely amazing to spend time. Coco is taking the picture. You guys haven't met Coco yet, but you're absolutely going to love her for sure here on the show very, very soon. That's all I'll say for now. But she was taking the picture here, and of course, top left corner there is Julie. And on top right corner, my beautiful Sarah, of course, and myself on the bottom right corner. This was just an amazing, I think this was our last the dinner with the whole group. We were just, you can't really see it, but we're sitting right next to the ocean there. And it was just a fabulous, beautiful wind, breeze, and sounds and all that. It was just absolutely amazing. I wanted to share that with you because I want you to I wanted to share with you that yes, we work really hard. Meg works really hard. Sophie works really hard. Everybody works really hard. And we also have to take the time to just be together, as Meg was saying. And this was very powerful for us too, because as we're doing more and more of the work together, it's more and more important for us to be in each other's proximity, not just to share our success, but also to support each other when we're going through difficult times, but also to put all of our energies together to stay on top of the energy, to know where we're going, to plot the course with you, our community. We have another staff retreat coming up here at the end of the March. Meg will be back here with us as well for that one. So I can't wait, Meg, to have you back in person with everyone, with Janine also including in that one. It's going to be one hell of a good session. Perhaps we'll do a live video with everybody there to show you this, how it goes here in the background of this beautiful Beyond Mystic community, creating all these amazing content for you guys. Any thoughts or words coming out of that picture for you, Meg, and staff member? And the viewers as well. If you have any comments on the picture, put them in the screen.
It just makes me so happy to see all you guys next to the ocean and the, what is it, the negative ions or positive?
Yes, absolutely that. Yeah, we actually talked about that during the week. Yeah. Yeah,
so that just beautiful, beautiful picture, and you guys look like you're really enjoying yourselves. So that's awesome.
That was really cool. Guys, before we leave the show here today too, can I ask you maybe two, how do I say that? Deux faveurs en français, two favors. One, hit the like button. If you're still here an hour and a half of me struggling here to put all of this out on my third show today, give me a like. Give me a like. That'd be cool. But really, put a comment below the video after the video is ending and let us know what your takeaway is from this video. I'm curious to see what that is. Meg and I were going to gauge your responses there too. It does help us create the following content on these shows. So let us know what your takeaway is. And if that takeaway for you is profound and meaningful, I would ask you perhaps a third thing or a third favor. Forward this video to somebody who you think that takeaway would be helpful for their highest good as well. This is how we build this community, and this is how we support each other. Of course, at no cost to everyone. We're happy to, Meg and I, share our energies with you this evening, and we'd ask you to maybe pay it forward. And so if you can do that, I'd be really, really appreciative. And once again, guys, really love you. I really love this community. Love doing these shows. Meg, you're absolutely fabulous. You're a great addition to the team as well. Oh, hold on. I just got another picture. maybe not. Okay. I thought I was going to share it. Somebody was sending me another picture, but I don't have time to ask everybody's permission in there to share with everyone. I did ask for this one, by the way, just so you know, before I share the picture for you guys. All right. So a big thank you to all of you here tonight. Of course, this was the Manifest Destiny show. Stay tuned, of course, for that next Astro Decode with Julie and Meg on MAISON. Do go and subscribe over there and check out also this very, very powerful singing bowl full moon meditation here. It's on BeyondMystic.academy. And last but not least, please remember to like, share, and subscribe here on Beyond Mystic YouTube's channel. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, Bruce Dizal is going to be back on the show. We're going to look at some of the amazing captures, not just of the moon and some of the activities around the moon, but also here in our own atmosphere. So you don't want to miss that. That's at 2 p.m. And finally, the Wacky Woo that was supposed to be tomorrow night is now on Sunday night. So stay tuned for that on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a couple of really cool, wacky guests with us, so you don't want to miss that episode as well. And of course, next week, we're going back to the normal schedule of the Divine Feminine Oracle show, so stay tuned for all of that. I'm Jean-Claude BeyondMystic. I love you guys. Merci beaucoup, Meg. Have a great evening, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Bye.